Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger and my friends. We now have a good taste and a good look at Season 2 of the King of Fighters 15 as we have the full patch notes released for the game. So first off, before we do anything else, if you want to view the full patch notes, check the video description down below. I'll have those linked for you. And we're going to be going over them in part because, well, the patch isn't live just yet. That'll be later on. And a lot of things in the patch, it can be hard to suss out what things are without actually seeing them in game. So if you want the full exhaustive breakdown, check back in a couple days. I'll have the visual guide when the patch is live. But for now, what I want to do is I want to highlight some of the more important changes, both gameplay system-wise and character-wise. So let's talk about it. So I'll timestamp stuff here, but I want to talk some system stuff as there's a few interesting changes. And I want to talk the top tiers, what happened to them, the low tiers, what's going to happen to them, and some characters I think you should be watching out for because I think they're going to be getting pretty exciting come Season 2. So now that said, first off, let's talk some of the system level changes. So one of the bigger ones out of the gate is when you're in max mode, you're going to do all right. You're going to do your big combos, all that, right? But you don't gain any meter. Now, that's going to change. When you're in max mode, you're doing whatever combo you're doing, you will gain meter for the duration of max mode. So basically, whoever your anchor is, your big combo character that uses max and abuses max, all that kind of stuff, whoever that character is going to be a big fan of that change. Another across-the-board universal change is your blowback. That's your CD. So across the board, all characters, the combo scaling is increased. So if you use your CD in the middle of a combo, that means you'll do less overall damage. So if you're a big fan of blowback attack into fireball into super, that will do less overall damage. Now, don't know how much, but it'll do less. Now, one change I'm a big fan of, and you're probably going to find some people are going to hate this change, but I like it because it deals with throws. So one of the weird things about King of Fighters compared to other fighting games is throw techs. Because you're allowed to throw tech in situations that you can't at all in other fighting games, specifically while you're in the middle of moves. So during like a normal or a command normal or whatever, you're allowed to tech a throw. This is not how this works in other games. And because of that, you can basically be assured of certain things on wake up. Like if I knock you down, I can get my pressure, all kind of stuff, and I can also be teching a throw while I'm attacking you on your wake up. If you want to throw me on your waking up. Now that will be changed as far as the lettering, the wording of this goes. If you are, doing anything besides, being in neutral and all that kind of stuff, you are no longer able to tech a throw. For me, this eliminates a lot of brain dead offense. This makes you have to play smarter. And we got a bunch of other small changes. Once again, check the full patch notes because I don't want to break my voice just yet doing everything. I'll be doing that soon enough in another video. And there's other quality of life stuff like it's harder to get accidental uppercuts when you're trying to walk forward and do a fireball, that kind of stuff. So lots of good stuff. Once again, check the full patch notes video description below. Okay, so now let's talk some of the top tiers. What's happening to them, right? Are they getting crunched down? Well, let's talk about it. So Cronin, the villain of King of Fighters 15. What's happening to him? Well, first thing is, how about a nice little buff? So Stand Light Kick is now going to be cancelable into his command normal. So that is a nice little quality of life buff, but it kind of goes downhill from here. Basically, a lot of his best and more abusable stuff is gonna be suffering. Stuff like Crouching Heavy Punch, right? So Crouching Heavy Punch is slower. It's 3 frames slower now and has a bigger hurt box. So slower, and it's easier to knock him out of it. This is definitely one of his more key moves. So now it's kind of being brought down in line. Now, of course, the big thing we got to talk about is just the uppercut, the heat shield, right? So regardless of the version, regular or EX, we're getting a bunch of nerfs here. So one, and this is a big one, can't hit behind him anymore. Have you ever been robbed by a Cronin where seemingly this was nowhere near you and it still blew you up? Well, that's no longer going to be the case. For the regular versions, has less overall active frames, way more recovery, and reduced the super cancel window. Has less active frames, increased recovery, so easier to punish on block and on whiff, by the way, and reduce the super cancel window. So, the old magic scenarios of uppercut into super, blowing you up for free, less so. The EX version as well, this is probably a big one, altered the opponent's behavior on hit. So as it stands, it launches you all the way up, right? And in a game where jumping's such a big deal, Cronin can like crush you for trying to jump in a way most characters cannot. So since the launching behavior is probably different on hit, I think it means it's just not going to launch you straight up for the easy do anymore and just rip someone's life in half for daring to do a hop at you. That's a big part of his threat, so we'll see. And to top it off, stuff like Strike Slash, Light Kick version is more recovery and less pushback on block, meaning you're probably going to die if it gets blocked at this point. Fusion Blaster, more recovery frames, and if you want to do the level 2 version, increase the time to get to the max damage version of it. So it's not going to be an easy do in combos anymore either. So you know what? I think Cronin's still going to be a perfectly fine character, but some of the more abusable stuff, I think that might be going away. Kula also is feeling it pretty badly here. So a lot of things, just a lot of little nerfs that all kind of add up. Like Sand Light Kick, which is a great poke, has a worse hitbox now. Also has more recovery, so using it as a poke, kind of not so much. Stuff like Jump Heavy Kick now has slower startup, also a worse hitbox. Stuff like her CD, her blowback, also worse hitbox. Stuff like LPDP here, more recovery now on block and on whiff. Diamond Breath, so this is a light version, will gain less meter on whiff now. So if you're using this as like a meter building tactic, not gonna be as good. Spin Kicks, so heavy spin kicks gain less meter. EX Spin Kick got the boot pretty bad here. So it does less damage across the board. So it used to be 40 and 40. It'll now be 30 and 30. If you block it, they'll be pushed back less. And you also cannot do any follow-ups if you get blocked. So basically now, there's no guessing game. There's no attempt to get out of jail. If this gets blocked, you are done. And some damage nerfs on the follow-ups as well. The one buff is that the Snowman now has reduced recovery frames. This is for all the versions, EX as well. So this might make it a more valuable move. But yeah, basically just kind of across the board here, worse hitboxes and basically less damage. But in the end, the core gameplay should still be the same, just a little less effective. Now, Yashiro, of the generally accepted top tier characters, Yashiro is definitely one of them, and man, he feels like he got hit the worst of everybody. His patch notes are pretty big, and it's just all nerfs. Like, let's just kind of run down the list here. Stand Light Punch, worse hitbox. Stand Heavy Punch, worse hitbox, more hurtbox, so it's easier to get hit out of it. Crouch Light Punch, worse hitbox. Crouch Light Kick is slower, it's 2 frames slower now. Crouch Heavy Punch, reduced distance traveled. This might affect some of his links, I don't know. And also, on top of that, increase the recovery frame, so why not? Jump Heavy Punch, that got nerfed too. Has a worse hurtbox and less hitbox, so just worse across the board. Jump Blowback, worse hurtbox, easier to smack him out of it. Uppercuts leave you closer on block, or the enemy rather, so it's easier to punish. And also, the opponent recovers quicker now from it. Oh, and if you whiff, the recovery frames are also jacked up, so just kind of worse all around. The EX version kind of got changed around, so it's not all nerfs. It cannot be thrown, for one. It has better guard points as well, like it lasts longer, so that's buffed. Although there's no possible follow-ups now, so it's strictly a reversal, basically. So once again, I'm not going to cover every single thing here, because there's a lot. But for the most part, Yashiro just kind of got hit with the sledgehammer. Check the patch notes if you want every little detail here. But he's definitely been brought down a peg. Okay, so that's some of the top tier characters. Let's talk some of the traditional lower tier characters. Someone like Ramon, who's widely since the start been considered the single worst character in the game. Now, did he get buffed? Yes. But will it matter? That's kind of the thing. Part of the reason Ramon's kind of bad in this game is because his core moveset, his toolkit just kind of sucks. So let's run through some of the buffs and I'll let you decide if that's enough for the boy in the end. So some nice buffs here. Far Heavy Punch is now special cancelable. Always good to have special cancelable moves. Close Light Punch, faster, 4 framer instead of 5. And Close Heavy Punch, 5 framer instead of 6. So getting the frames buffed on moves, always to your advantage. Just keeping on board here, like Crouch Light Punch here. Now a 4-framer as well from 5 frames. The drop kick, this guy here, important in a lot of other games in the series. That is now 12 frames from 16. So making it 4 frames faster, that's pretty good. Rolling Sobat, this guy here, the setup with the splash and you can pick him back up. That now has reduced combo scaling, so it does more overall damage in combos. Although the EX version got a nerf, which is very odd. It says increased, not decreased, increased all recovery frames on block and whiff, and reduced knockback on block, meaning if they block, they're closer to you than they were before. You know, Ramon, like, this wasn't a problem move or anything, right? So I don't know why they had to do that to the boy. Another interesting thing here is Tiger Load. So that is where he runs up through the wall and does all of his various moves, right? So that can now be canceled into the Birds of Paradise Stomp. So basically another layer of trickiness and mobility. Also with Tiger Load, the Feint. The Feint has a hitbox to it, and that hitbox can now hit airborne people. So potentially new juggle routes, new combos, that kind of stuff. Cross chops are better and they build more meter, and the heavy version goes further. Sometimes, depending on where they were on the screen, it could like kind of barely whiff, so that would suck. So it should be better now. Also, speaking of Birds of Paradise again here. So apparently the recovery is going to be greatly reduced. So making this hopefully a much more valuable tool. And we got a few other smaller things as well. But yeah, so it's basically mostly all buffs across the board. But once again, the problem with Ramon is just the moveset kind of sucks. So we'll see, even though it is pretty much all buffs, if it actually matters in the end. Now, Dino. Dino's got some really good quality of life changes. One of them here, stand close heavy kick here. Now, we do have a little bit of a trailer that showed some of the changes. And close heavy kick is now a launcher. So that definitely changes things up pretty decently, I would say. Crouch heavy punch as well, also got a buff. Reduced recovery on hit, that's good. Added an attack hitbox during the parts of the attack where there was none. That's some suspect wording, I suppose. But the thing is, what I hope anyways, is when you would use this as an anti-air, sometimes people just go through you and go through the move. So I'm hoping that means that its anti-air hitbox is better, because it really needs to be better. And it has a better cancel window, which is good, because it was very not generous before. You basically had to instantly cancel if you're going to do anything. And the problem is, of course, not many moves canceled well into it. Some other fun things. The heavy version of his grab, this guy here. So it has a guard point, as you probably well know. And that can make it useful when you know certain moves are coming. But it was never frame 1. So if you're using it in a situation where you're like trying to wake up into it, if they had a perfect media, you're going to get smacked no matter what. Now it is frame 1. So that means he can wake up and do this and armor through whatever you're doing to him. And if you're not extra careful, you're going to get blown up. This is, you know, as a character who's very immobile, you know, slowest character in the game basically, big hurt box, gets smacked around a lot. He's going to be spending a lot of the match on his back a lot of the time, right? So giving him this as like a defensive option, like if you try to meaty me, if you try to do whatever, I'm going to get you. This is good. This makes him a lot scarier just to do your safe jumps and your setups and your Oki and your pressure on. This, very nice. Very good quality of life buff. Also, the EX, which is effectively unreactable, travels further now. So that's good. He needs some greasy stuff, right? So the thing is, it didn't go that far. So if you want to catch people with that grab from a distance away, now it's going to be all the better yet, apparently. Now here's a fun one. So if he caught you in the corner, like you didn't have too much options other going to bite and just like send them on their way, right? Like that's just kind of how she was. But now, the heavy version of the Ankylo Hammer, the third hit no longer hits, which is actually a buff. You think that sounds like a nerf, but that is actually a buff. We have, once again, that video that showed us what's going on. And due to this change, you actually can get some juggle situations going on now that you just couldn't before. So that is actually very, very interesting. Also, a nice buff to Anchor Dino is the Super Grab. So Super Grab can now be climax canceled into the level 3. So before, you know, if you get your grab, right? But you can't super it or whatever. So this gives him more comeback potential, basically. Like, if you have the meter and you get the grab, then all of a sudden you can get the grab, get, you know, pretty solid damage. And then after the fact, go into the level 3. And if you get the level 1 or level 2 grab, that could be curtains, because, you know, he does a good bit of damage when it's all said and done. So that's not something that'll come up all the time necessarily, but it gives him more reach to end the enemy's life if you got the meter than he ever had before. So is Dino going up the tiers? Maybe from low tier to mid tier, but still, this is absolutely quality of life going up. He is gonna absolutely be a better character for it. Now, another perpetual struggler is Billy. Billy is usually considered the worst character in the game alongside with Ramon for a lot of reasons, and his change list is pretty good. So one of the big ones out of the gate, stand heavy punch. You know, he's a long-range character, ideally. He wants to poke you with the big stick. That's why he has it, right? But the problem with poking you with the big stick is you die. That's a punish. That's a punish. So I didn't even block. I let that shit hit me. That hit me. That's still a punish, right? So anyone with an even remotely fast move, if Billy hits you in the face, you die. Like, you can just walk forward and thank him for hitting you. And, you know, like, what a stupid thing. Imagine Dowsum if he hits you from full screen and you punish him for it. That would never be considered acceptable in Street Fighter, but here in King of Fighters, that's just another day for Billy Kane. So yeah, his basic poke reduced recovery frames on hit, not on block, but you should no longer get punished on hit for it, at the very least. And the quality of life just kind of goes across his moveset. Like, Stand Light is faster now, it's a frame faster. His Close Normal Share, Close Light Punch has a better hitbox. Jump Heavy Punch, another poke, has a better, more manageable hurt box, so it's less likely he'll get smacked out of it for trying. His blowback got nerfed, has a worse hitbox, but you know, they're kind of nerfing blowbacks mostly across the board, so that one will accept, even though Billy really shouldn't be getting nerfed at all. Some other very interesting changes. So his command normal forward punch, it's a little slower now, 22 frames, but it is now a true overhead instead of a mid. So if you're sleeping at all, it's going to get you, plus it has a better hitbox to boot. Forward and light kick command normal goes over lows much faster now. Because, you know, ideally he's not on the ground, so if you're poking at him, should hit him now, it's going to be a lot more reasonable to do. And a bunch of his specials are always kind of not great. So stuff like the Whirlwind. Now the EX version, it says increased pulling distance. So ideally it should be able to pull you and hit you from further away, which would be very good. When it comes to comboing, it says the final hit has a better hitbox. Reduce combo scaling, so using combos will just do more damage overall. The damage will be less on the initial hits, but the final hit, the damage will go from 20, although it'll be scaled, to 100. So ideally you should be pumping out a good deal more damage. The old pogo stick, you can now use both the regular and the EX version in the same combo. So your routes are going to be better, you're going to do more damage overall. That is a good quality of life buff. And that also goes for the up poke. You can also now use both the regular and the EX version in a combo. So just increasing your juggles, increasing your damage. Also, specifically the heavy version is now fully invincible to aerial attacks. As it stands, that is absolutely not the case. And if you try to stop a jump or a hop or whatever, you're going to get blown up. So having a proper defensive option against aerial attacks, very, very good. Also has a better hitbox, it's faster, it's 2 frames faster, so like just better across the board. Made his counters better, the hitbox is better, he's invulnerable all the way through, so in situations where like something's on the screen, you're doing the counter, you won't get hit out of it. Just better all around. Stuff like supers travel further. He basically has a lot more combo potential. Like we've seen this before in an earlier video, showcasing combos that he just could not do before. And now, well, all the better yet, right? So Billy, I don't think he's going to top tier or nothing, but I think he will escape absolute bottom tier. Ramon, maybe not. Maybe not. But I think Billy has a chance to get out of the dregs. Now, to talk a couple characters I think you should keep your eyes on. Maybe not rocketing the top tier or anything, but their buffs, I think, are pretty significant. So let's start with Maxima. I love Maxima. The King of Fighters 15 version of Maxima is not the best version of Maxima. Let's call it for what it is. But he's finally getting some good buffs that are kind of getting there. Stuff like Sweep. Sweep is getting a guard point. I know he's not hurting for guard points, but having more guard points is more better. Vapor Cannons are now better recovery on hit or on block. Now, one of the things here is they changed how Vapor Cannons work from some of the other games. So like the heavy version's plus, but when you're like a little plus, like you're only a couple frames plus from this far away, what does it really mean, right? So if they can like ramp up the plus frames, it might actually make it worthwhile to do. Don't got the numbers yet, but I'm hoping it could be pretty good. And some characters, the light version, it's very negative. And if you have a very quick rush super, you can just punish them for even doing it even on block. So hopefully that changes a bit. Other things like heavy grab, the run grab is faster. Was 31 frames, is now 26 frames. And well, who gets hit with a 26 frame grab? You know, who gets hit by the 26 frame overhead? All you guys do all the friggin' time, right? So don't give me that nonsense. Making this quite a few frames faster will make this a lot more useful, especially because, naturally, it is special cancelable, so we can gimmick it in other moves. So here's the beauty. So the charge, this is the move they gave him in this game. The charge, the light version of the charge, is now 2 frames faster, which means, as we can see here in this clip from the patch preview, it now naturally combos from his lights. So how this normally works, well, it doesn't. That's how that normally works. It doesn't. So this gives Maxima some nice hit confirm potential he did not have before. Like if I'm point blank, yeah, I can still combo into it, but I'm not going to do that, right? Normally how this goes is on lights anyways. You don't waste your time on stuff like the shoulder. Like you would burn a bar and go for the grab and go for the follow, but that takes a bar. If you're pushing people back going for an easy hit confirm like other characters have that don't have to spend a meter, well, you didn't have the option. You had to spend meter because nothing else would work. Shoulder's too slow. Obviously, Vapor Cannon too slow as well. And if you're like a little further out, that wouldn't combo either. So you had to rely on burning bar for basic hit confirms, which is ridiculous, right? That is not an issue for other characters. And no longer is it an issue for him. Maxima can do a basic combo just like anybody else. Wow, what a concept. I know that sounds like I'm overblowing it, but man, when you're playing like any other character in the game and you can just do basic stuff and, you know, Maxima can't, it sucks. So it's actually a really nice buff. Also, now speaking of that, heavy charge now has more overall guard point frame. So the armor on it lasts longer basically during the move. So if you're looking to like blow through attacks and all that kind of stuff, it is now better suited at doing that task. Also much the same in the EX version, more overall guard point frames. The hits keep coming to double Vapor Cannon, all versions. They removed the guard point. Oh, well, that's a nerf because it's just straight up all the way invulnerable now. So we don't need a guard point. You know, invulnerability is better than guard point. So that's great. Also does more damage. Also, laser supers do more damage across the board. That's great. Also his level 3 super removed the guard point because the level 3 super is now full invulnerable once again. So that is just better. Like once again, Maxima is like low mid tier, let's be generous. Is he going to top tier? No, he's not, but he's going to be a much more reliable and viable pick. And for me, a fan of Maxima, someone who plays Maxima, that's all I ever really wanted. Another person to watch out for is Ryo. He's got some very interesting changes, very difficult to suss out, some of them. Like we need to see them in action, but they're very tantalizing sounding. Some are basic, like Stand Light Punch can now cancel into Stand Light Kick, which isn't much in and of itself, but if you're just looking for basic stuff to go into like, you know, hit confirm into max or something, that's there, that's good. Close Stand Light Punch is faster, and that's good because it does link into a lot of his close heavy normals. That just makes that stuff better, that's good. So here's where some of the fun starts. So Forward Light Punch, specifically the cancel version, the combo version, can now itself be canceled into his back Light Punch. And also the command for back Light Punch is changing. So it was back Light Punch, and it is now going to be the 2 punches together, Light Punch, Heavy Punch together. So a true string sequence would look like this. That into that, and that can now go into this. Now, would it combo? I don't think so, but then again, it just might. Who knows for sure? But one of the things here, naturally, is it's quite plus on block. And the other thing, too, on top of the motion being changed into the 2 punches together, it now leaves the enemy much closer to you on block. So if you're just going in and attacking all that kind of stuff, then, you know, you have more plus frames to work with. Like, his fundamental block string pressure is going to change, and really got to get our hands on it to see how it's going to work out fully, but it is very interesting sounding. Other fun things, KoFXV now build meter on whiff, because they don't build any meter at all currently unless they connect. So a lot of other characters, if you whiff a special, you get meter. Now, much the same for Rio. The counters also very interesting changes. So the mid counter, and, well, the low counter as well, better hitbox. So if you're looking to counter stuff, it'll counter stuff easier than it currently does. That's great. The forward light kick counter specifically can now whiff cancel. So you can go into it like into a fireball or something, like whatever special you want. Considering, you know, you can already cancel into it from strings, all that kind of stuff, that means all sorts of gimmicks and gigas are going to be possible for sure. So potentially you could do something like close heavy into cancel into like a KoFXV or something. Like, who actually knows how that's all going to work? But I'm very interested to see how it is going to work. That's it ignites the imagination. Other fun stuff like machine gun blow, reduce the combo scaling, meaning they'll do more damage across the board. That's great. Ranboo. So it's 2 frames faster startup. In terms of like catching people, like whiffing stuff mid-screen or throwing fireballs or whatever, that actually kind of matters. That's really, really good. Also, his level 3 is just going to do more damage across the board. It's getting a 20 damage buff. Like, I don't know, like, a lot of this stuff, it's hard to actually tell without playing with the patch, but it just sounds really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Rio works post-patch. He might be kind of crazy. And the last character you might really want to keep your eye on is Mitenkun, our sleepy boy himself, because some of the changes are really interesting. Stand heavy kick. So stand heavy kick now says can be cancelled before the attack occurs. What does that mean? That means effectively you can Kara cancel the move. So say you want to toss a pillow, right? That's fine. The way it's worded, because you can cancel this now before it would connect, that means you can move forward and then cancel that into tossing your pillow. And that'd be much the same for all your moves. So say like your charge punch. So you can hold back, hit heavy kick, and then hit forward and punch, and would cancel the initial startup that moves you forward into the charge punch, meaning you can go further than you ever could before. So in terms of neutral, in terms of combos, giving access to an easy, very far moving Kara cancel can be a very, very big deal. Once again, we got to get our hands on the patch to see the full effects, but even on paper, that sounds absolutely wild. And of course, you know, he's getting other quality of life stuff. Close standing light kick is 4-framer now instead of a 5-framer. They're making jump heavy kick better, hitting further down. That's good. They're making his sleepy charge mechanic, if you're not aware. The more he charges a move, basically the stronger he gets. It makes it much more reliable because you get to choose now. So say the full charge dash punch. Big deal, right? But the thing is, sometimes you don't always want it. Sometimes you actually would prefer to have, you know, the level 1 version, just if you don't want to move as far or whatever. So now how this works is the level 1 version will always come out if you do the light punch version. Now, if you want the big fancy full charge version, just hit heavy punch. You're good to go. But if you want specifically the level 1 version, if you hit light punch, you'll always get the level 1 version. That's good. Also, for both versions, light punch or heavy punch, you have reduced timing to enter a super if you want to go for a super. And it says the window for entering a super is also going to be much more lenient. So just better across the board. Also, just to cap it off here, if you want to do the EX version, the follow-up now does 20 more damage than it did before. That's perfect. Much the same for his quote-unquote flash kick. If you want to have the level 1 version always, if you hit light, it'll always be the level 1 version. You don't accidentally get the level 3 version if you've been charging for too long. Good quality of life. His air kicks also kind of getting buffed. So each kick for the basic versions now gain more meter per hit. That's good. Better hitbox as well. That's good. The EX version's here. So the EX version, each hit does more damage. That's good. Especially because if you can get it just right, it does a lot of damage by itself, and each hit does 10 more damage, so that's gonna add up. Also states here for the EX version specifically that faces the opponent when triggered after flying overhead. So the way it reads, as it currently stands, if you do it like right as you go like a pixel over their head, you'll just fling yourself across the screen the other way, right? So it should auto-correct and go the other way, which would lead to some pretty tricky cross-ups. So for Mitenkun, just better quality of life across the board, and I think that stand heavy kick change might be pretty wild. Who knows? but I think it'll be pretty crazy. So that's a bit of a look at the patch. Now, obviously, there's a lot of characters I didn't cover because there's a lot of characters in this game, but we'll do that when the patch comes out and we have the big patch visual guide. I'll go over every single character and over every single change. But for now, this is just a look at it. Once again, if you want to see the full patch notes, please check the video description. I'll have them linked there, as well as a link to the patch preview video that SNK put out, because it'll give you an idea of what some of these changes might mean for some of the characters. It's not exhaustive, but it's just there to be a bit of a preview. Going by the reading of the patch, it seems like a pretty good patch. A lot of the top tiers, they're getting brought down a little bit, yes. But, you know, they're not being crippled. They're not worthless. They're still going to be plenty good. Just they're not going to run the game for free, because that's kind of where we're at right now, right? And a lot of the bottom tiers and the low tiers, a lot of quality of life buffs. They're not going to exactly shoot up the tier list for free, but maybe less feel like you're wasting your time picking them, right? Some of the characters like Billy, especially Maxima, Dino, these are characters that are lower tier that feel like they're going to get out pretty all right from this patch. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, patch is hitting. There's always the one thing no one ever thought would be a big deal, and then winds up being the biggest deal. So look forward for that when it happens. But all in all, I think this is a very good patch. I think it's a very good way to kick off Season 2. And we're going to get some other fun things like, you know, the character select screen is going to change. Because it kind of has to. Because at bare minimum, we got to fit 6 more characters in here. And there just isn't room for 6 more. So seeing how that expands will be fun. But yeah, all in all, I think it's going to be a strong patch. Look forward to more coverage when the patch is actually live. And otherwise, hey, I guess we're at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some King of Fighters.
This is the